So Gary, for this lesson, what are we going to learn?
Welcome. This is again talking hands, and we're going to learn the technique for making a wrapped bead link with an open link and a wrapped bead link with a closed link. And what we're going to tell you is that it's probably worthwhile to know the technique for making the bead link with the open link, but we're always going to recommend that you use the closed link like this one here. So we'll show you both techniques.
And what's the reason you recommend that?
Well, the closed link is much stronger. The open link can be pulled apart.
Oh, well, it's much harder, if not, I won't say impossible, but very hard to pull apart the...
Very hard.
Okay, that sounds good.
So the tools that we use for this are we're going to use round nose pliers, bent chain nose pliers, our flush cutter, a second pair of chain nose pliers, and then we're going to show you how to make this chain using the step jaw pliers, and it adds a little bit of consistency to the end result.
Okay.
What we're going to do, we use brass wire for this. I'm going to make it with red wire just so it'll stand out a little more.
Oh, that's great.
And then, we'll cut it off when
Plus,
we're
it
finished.
works great for crafty type jewelry.
Yeah, absolutely. So first we're going to make the open link, and then we're going to make the closed link. And the other thing that I should say is that this project uses 20 or 22 gauge wire. You could even use 24 gauge wire. You don't use 18 gauge wire, and the reason you don't use 18 gauge wire is it won't go through most of the bead.
Ah, so the thickest you can use is 20 gauge.
20 gauge. So I'm going to start by grabbing the wire with my bent chain nose pliers. To make the open link, I want to grab it about 3/4 to 1/2 inch from the end, and then I'm going to push it over 90 degrees like that.
And this is 20 gauge.
20 gauge.
Okay.
Yes, the brass wire here is 22, this is 20.
Oh, so you're using slightly larger probably for the picture.
Exactly. Now, one thing I would tell you is it's important to be consistent and make all your loops the same size. But for a beginner, what I would tell a beginner is to make their loops larger. So for this particular links that we're going to add here in this red wire, I'm going to make the loops a little larger because it's easier to see.
Oh, good.
And for a beginner, it's appropriate. So I'm just going to make a loop here, and I need to push it over. This is one of the techniques for making an eye loop. And I want the loop centered, and if it's not centered, I can always adjust it just by going back with my pliers and giving it a little bend one way or the other. So that looks pretty centered right there.
Okay.
And so now I want to cut the excess wire. And I use my flush cutters to make that cut.
Great.
And so I use my chain nose or bent chain nose to close this. I'm going to add my bead. Like that. And now here you want to use the tips of your pliers that are the thinnest pliers that you have, and grip it right at the tip and then bend the wire over 90 degrees again. And the reason you want to use the thinnest pliers that you have is that it makes the space above the bead the smallest. And so now, just so I remember where I grabbed it the last time,
oh, that's
put
a
it back
great
on
trick.
the pliers, and then that'll tell me where to grab it this time. And I'm going to grab it right there and then bend it around. Here I'm going to check to make sure I got it centered, and it's not centered. So I'm going to adjust it slightly.
And it takes some practice to learn this, but once you figure it out, it's a wonderful technique.
Yeah, this particular technique is one that we're going to recommend that people know, but when we do the next technique, that's the one we're going to recommend people use.
Oh, I see.
So here I have to cut. And so now I have one open loop here. I'm going to open up just a little further so I can connect it into my chain. And you can see I'm connecting the two loops there. And then I'm going to close it. And so now I've added a link to my open chain, and you can see that's the technique we use for adding a link to an open chain. And
Wrapped beads.
now we're going to go to wrap beads.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah, that was open link. Now we're going to do the wrap bead link. And again, I'm going to make a little bit larger loop here the first time. And I'm going to start using the round nose pliers, and then the second time we're going to use the step jaw pliers and show you just a little bit different technique. But now we want to grip the wire about an inch from the end of the wire and bend it over 90 degrees, so the start is exactly the same. Then we're going to take our round nose pliers and we're going to grip it at roughly the same point right by the bend, and I'm going to push it up and over, and I can't complete the loop, so I'm going to reorient it and then push it down like that. And right in this position I want it to be centered, and it looks like it is centered.
Looks good.
And so when you have an existing chain and you're adding a new bead to a wrap bead link chain, at this point that's when you add the link. So I've added the link.
Oops.
Oops. And so you can see I have the loop. And the reason that it's easier for a beginner to make the large loops is it's easier to grab the loop like that.
Got it.
But because of this technique, grabbing the loop is so important. That's why it's important to have pliers that have a very thin tip.
Right.
Okay. And then now we're just going to do the wrap.
Which our pliers have. I think you had to make that a special requirement for the pliers before we purchased them.
Yes, that's true.
Because we wanted them thin on the ends. They're thinner than a lot of other pliers.
Exactly. And when the wire starts to get short like this, that's when you use a second pair of pliers to help you push the wire around like this.
Again, about 2 times around, 2.5.
About 2 times around. It's personal preference. You can do it 1 time around if you want. I mean, the loop police won't arrest you for doing it 1 time around. But my personal preference is to do it 2 times around. So we have that link loop completed. Now I've got to add the one on the other end. And the technique is the same here. I want to grip the wire immediately above the bead like this.
Okay.
And I want to bend it over 90 degrees. Like that. With my chain nose pliers. And now I'm going to grip it at the bend with my round nose pliers, push the wire up and over. I need to reorient so I can complete the loop, and then I complete the loop. And this is the point where I check to make sure that it's centered, and that looks pretty centered. So now I'm going to wrap this closed, and you can see that we're just wrapping it around closed. About 2 times, 2.5 times. And when you get to where it's 2.5 times, then you're ready to cut. I'm going to cut the excess wire here. And I have a very small piece of wire sticking out right there, so this is where I use 2 pair of pliers. To squeeze and twist. Squeeze and twist. And that's my completed wrap bead loop.
Great, thanks so much.